I think the space is evergreen in the amount of innovation that there is to come. Like, we have never launched a product that's growing this fast at Strike. So it tells you the amount of demand that people have for help me live on my Bitcoin without selling it. And you shouldn't have to lose sleep over liquidation. You shouldn't have to be forced to use a 12-month term. You should be able to get a line of credit.
Welcome back to the Plan B podcast, coming to you live from Lugano. I'm your guest host, Stephan Livera. Joining me today is a longtime Bitcoin advocate, really doing a lot of great work in the community and, in business. He is the CEO and co-founder of Strike. Welcome, Jack Mallers.
What's going on, man? How are you guys?
Yes, I think you're doing a great job out there, and let's hear a little bit. Now you started Strike, was it 2019?
2020.
Yeah, so I mean, you've been around. Obviously, it's gone through various iterations.
Yeah.
I think probably the latest thing now is the lending side of it. But give us, just a bit of an update. What is the latest on Strike? What's happening?
So Strike, we started as a Lightning Network company. It was born out of the block size wars, which hilariously, there's some infighting in the community now, but it was born out of the block size wars, and we wanted to prove that Bitcoin had some utility value. Fast forward to FTX blows up, Binance gets in some legal trouble, and that bear market in 2022, a lot of Bitcoiners came to us and said, we actually want Bitcoin financial services from you guys. We trust you. You build reliable software. You have the right vision and mission and focus. We also had the right licenses. We had everything we needed to be the place that Bitcoiners could acquire Bitcoin from, now borrow against their Bitcoin from, custody Bitcoin if they needed, a wallet. And so we pivoted from just focusing on payments to being a global Bitcoin financial services firm. And so today, we're one of the biggest global Bitcoin brokerages in the world, and we might be, at this point, the largest retail lender. So not wholesale. I think Tether's the largest wholesale lender, but distributing Bitcoin-backed loans directly to the plebs, the individuals. In 6 months of the product live, we might be the biggest globally. We offer that product here in Europe, in the United States, in Australia, and there's 6 countries in Latin America that we offer it as well. So we've become the one-stop shop for the Bitcoiner, and we serve someone that wants to make Bitcoin money, and whether that's acquiring it or borrowing against it to finance part of their life, like, we serve them financially.
Got it. So talk me through the lending product, just kind of the high level, like what's the interest rate? What are the terms you offer? Just some of the basic kind of overview of the lending product.
Yeah, so I'm very excited about the lending product, and I know it can be a hot topic. My favorite thing to say is if you don't want to use it, don't use it. I'm not putting a fucking gun to your head. But it's the first financial service in Bitcoin that I've seen, and I've been building in this space a long time. I started Strike in 2020, but I've been in Bitcoin for 13 years. It's the first one that we've seen have real product market fit. Like, it's actually enabling a Bitcoiner to not just keep it under their mattress in a cold card, but it's changing their life. They're able to take this asset that's 50%, 60% CAGR, and then turn that into a university degree for their kid, or an emergency surgery for a medical issue, or a new home. We had a customer that had 2 kids in a tiny little apartment, and they wanted a yard, and they were able to borrow against the Bitcoin and finance a home so that the kids could play. And it's the first time we've seen Bitcoin have utility value in an everyday life. And so I'm very excited about it. The initial product, and the one that's live today, it's a 12-month duration loan. The terms start as low as around 9% APR. And it depends how much you borrow from us. So we tier the rates. If you're borrowing 1 USDT, it's closer to 13%. But if you have a more material loan, the rate comes down. And this product, I think it's great, but compared to what's possible, I think it's okay. Because 12-month isn't the dream duration. And also what we're seeing from customers, when we launch the product, everyone takes out a loan. The number one request we got is, I want 2 loans. So you say, that's weird. You already took out a loan. Yeah, but I took out this one for my dentist bill, and now I want one for my next months of payments. And then they wanted 3 loans, 4 loans, 5 loans, 6 loans. And it's fascinating because you'd think, oh, people are just levering to buy more Bitcoin. No, only at peak buying Bitcoin with borrowed capital is about 50%. People are actually going out and doing things, starting businesses, buying homes, or just financing their credit card payments next month. And so now what we're building, I was shitposting on Nostr, and it kind of got out, so now I have to own it a little bit. But we're building like a line of credit on your Bitcoin. So if you want to make a Lightning payment, if you want to swipe a card at the grocery store, you don't have to take out a 12-month duration loan and park capital for a year. You can just spend against your Bitcoin as if it's a secured credit card. And so we're really evolving the product to how can you live on Bitcoin without having to sell it, spend it, incur a taxable event in a way that you can responsibly take on whatever risk is appropriate to you. We don't want to force this 12-month term onto people. And so that's really the evolution of the product. And it's the best because, as a Bitcoiner, I want people to hyper-Bitcoinize. I want to live in a world like I don't own any fiat, and I don't plan to. I'm not bullish the dollar. And so I've engineered a way where I can comfortably and responsibly live on Bitcoin.
Fantastic.
And
yeah. And I think the thinking has shifted over the years. And one other thing. Can you clarify for us, what are the LTV kind of levels that you normally operate at?
We start at 50% LTV. And like any good company, if you need anything custom, you just call me. You reach out to us. We have a team. We have a private team if there's a special instance. But actually what's great about, again, us being a Bitcoin company, we do not work on shit coins. We do not tender and care to the speculative crowd. Our customers actually average their loans starting at 40% LTV. So again,
they're over-collateralizing a little bit more.
They're over-collateralizing. So we start at 50. If a customer needs anything special, they reach out to us, but it hasn't been an issue because Bitcoiners aren't degenerates.
Yeah. And then, so just kind of indicative example, like with, to make the numbers easy, let's say one Bitcoin is 100,000. You can put up one BTC as collateral and you can borrow $50,000.
Yep.
But if you want to be more safe about it, maybe you put up one BTC and only borrow $40,000.
Yep.
And that would be a 40% LTV.
Correct.
And so can you explain for us just like what are the liquidation levels and things like that, just so people are aware?
Yeah. So there's a difference. There's margin call and liquidation. Margin call will reach out to you and we have your phone number. We'll send you emails and push notifications and say, hey, we want you to get in better standing. It's getting a little too close. And then that's around 75%, 85% is liquidation.
Okay.
And and
fair enough.
We want to make sure that you're in this 50 to 60%. And, you can turn off these notifications, but our job is not to take your Bitcoin. And as a Bitcoiner, I don't want to do that. I obviously have to responsibly do that or else no one would trust using the product. But we try and be as communicative as we can. We actually are. This will hopefully come out this quarter. This is the first time I'm announcing this. I'm really running running my mouth here. We're working on a product where there is no liquidation at all.
Fantastic.
Yes, because it's one of the biggest requests is I don't want customers having to stress, lose sleep, or think too hard about finance calculations. Bitcoin's volatility is a gift to all of us, and it shouldn't be a stress to our customers.
So how do you achieve a no liquidation product? Is it like a higher interest rate to compensate, or what is it?
It'll be a more expensive product.
Gotcha.
I want to make it as cheap as I possibly can, so I don't know exactly what we'll charge. But the point is, at Strike, we're a very profitable business. We already own over 1,500 Bitcoin on our balance sheet, which for a startup that started, 5 years ago, it's not bad. And the point I made to my executive team and my product team is I'm happy to be long the Bitcoin. Like in a default scenario, I'll take the Bitcoin on our balance sheet because I know it's going up. If you take buying Bitcoin, DCAing Bitcoin over any 4-year cycle, the worst performance is 110%. And I'm not going anywhere. And so I said, let's create a product where the customer can feel more comfortable. Now, obviously, that product's a premium to where if they own the risk themselves, and then we can find a way to backstop it by just adding instead of 15 whatever Bitcoin, 1,500 something, 1,500 plus one, and so we're working on that and trying to find a way to achieve that. But we think we can launch it before the year's over.
Yeah, I think that'll be really cool because a lot of people are interested, as you said, in the longer term loan and a no liquidation style. And maybe they would pay more for that. Maybe that's worth it for them.
And I think the dream is a line of credit. Like if you want to buy a house, you're going to want whatever, $500,000 euro loan. But if you want to just cover your credit card payments, if you want to just go out to dinner, you just want incremental spending on top of the Bitcoin, and then your paycheck comes in and you pay it off, right? Just like any consumer line of credit. I think that's the dream. And then people can appropriate their risk how they want. And the last thing I'll say is, sometimes people say, well, let's say you're at a 10% annual APR. And they say, well, that's really expensive because mortgage rates are 6%, 4%. The problem is real estate compounds annually at around 2 to 3% on average. So it's a really shitty instrument to store your wealth. Bitcoin's compounding at 50 to 60%. And so obviously if I can bring the rates down, I will. The problem is it's hard for me to get the capital to then loan on to customers. But what people should be measuring is what's the compound annual growth rate of the asset they're borrowing against, of their collateral, versus the rate. So if you have an asset that's growing 50 to 60%, 10% is a steal. Right? I'm a huge customer of my own product. I do it all day because that delta's so big. If your mortgage rate is 6% and real estate's compounding at 3%, I know the 6% is lower than 10, but it's a really shitty deal because you're not outperforming inflation by owning some condo in an overpopulated city with crime and all sorts of stupid fucking broke government decisions, right?
Yeah, and I think the other kind of underlying factor is a lot of people underestimate what inflation is, right? Because they'll tell you CPI is whatever, 3%, but actually the base money is growing at whatever, 9, 10, 11% per year.
100%.
So if base money is growing at like whatever, 10% a year and you're only paying, 10% for the interest, it's kind of, it's actually a pretty good deal for you on the borrowing side. So long, again, as long as you are conservative and, doing the right things and not over levering and things like this.
Yeah, and Strike, obviously we're still a Lightning wallet and probably one of the most popular in the world. And if people want to spend Bitcoin and scan QR codes and go to Bitcoin Beach, that's absolutely part of the product. But now we also have this other one where we're more supportive of what we think is like Gresham's Law playing out, where we still live in a world where your consumer goods are denominated in the euro or the dollar. You still need a credit card or a debit card to live your everyday life. And we're just supporting different ways for people to empower themselves with Bitcoin in their life.
So let's get into one thing that's, I guess, shifted over the years. Now, you and I have been around in Bitcoin for a little while. We've seen a few cycles. Of course, everyone's thinking, like, in the recent, like, the cycle before, it was like all the BlockFi, Celsius, FTX, and Genesis, and all this stuff, right? And probably also, now, this is about 5 years ago, right? So not everyone was kind of here at that time, but there was the big COVID crash in, like, March, right? At that time, Bitcoin went from, like, 10K down to maybe 3,000 or 4,000.
Yeah.
And this is, now, admittedly, an extreme scenario that maybe caused a lot of people to have a fear of these kinds of lending and collateralizing products because of that such a dramatic drop. And I think it happened overnight. You know what I mean? So in that scenario, I know, and I'm probably sure there were like Bitcoiners we know who were like running to quickly load more collateral because otherwise they were going to get liquidated. And so now, I guess we've seen a shift over time in the mindset around debt because people understand there's so much more inflation, and so it makes sense. And maybe the other argument is actually Bitcoin is becoming less volatile over time, right? Like maybe it's like a diminishing returns or like a power law kind of idea. So maybe, as you said, historically maybe it's like kind of 50, 60% or even higher, and maybe going forward it's going to be sort of somewhere between 40% down to like kind of 25% or so. And so do you think that's also what's driving some of this interest now in collateralized Bitcoin products, because it's like the volatility has come down a bit from earlier years? Maybe.
I think more so it's primarily two reasons, and this is for us, like who's borrowing against their BlackRock ETF at JP Morgan is it probably a different customer than who I serve. But for us, it's one, the asset class is maturing. And you could say, yes, that's the same thing as saying the volatility is lessening. They might be one and the same. but I would describe it more as people understand Bitcoin much better than they did 5 years
True.
ago. They understand the concept of money better. Things like Saifedean's Bitcoin standard wasn't properly propagated back in those times, right? And so I would say the asset class has matured, the industry has matured, all of you in the audience, like we've greatly matured in what Bitcoin is and how we can use it. The other is naturally the appreciation. You know, Bitcoiners as an asset class group, we're very powerful because we've accumulated a lot of wealth. Right? Like when we talk to our customers, they say a majority of our customers are over 50% of my wealth is in Bitcoin. A lot of our customers is over 90% of my wealth is in Bitcoin. And a lot of these customers also bought Bitcoin 10 years ago, 5 years ago, and have come across a substantial amount of wealth. And so then the question is, how can you make it, how can you impact your life while not parting with the Bitcoin itself? And sometimes the right decision, depending on your situation, is to part with some of the Bitcoin. We've seen a lot of selling from OGs at this 100K level, and sometimes that's what's reasonable. But a lot of times people say, okay, I have X amount of Bitcoin, I'm gonna borrow against a smaller amount of my stack to get a cooler house, to get the boat I've always wanted, whatever that is. And so I think it's that as well, is that we've seen the asset class appreciate so much, and you have people that, you know, if something's compounding at 60% a year, I don't care what else you own or how much money you make. If you're in the Premier League, Bitcoin's the majority of your net worth. You cannot outperform that thing with a salary or with a cool tech stock. It's just a monster. And so it crowds your portfolio, and you need a way to create cash liquidity without parting with it because you believe in it. So
Right.
I think that's it
the
as
tax
well.
aspects and so on. Yeah.
It's a very interesting product because it gets more popular the more Bitcoin grows.
Yeah. And I think the other element to what you were saying, the maturity of the asset class, we are now seeing more people, because there's two sides of the house here. You've got the borrowing side of the house, you know, you want to go and borrow, and you've got the lender and capital provider side of the house, right? Because you on your side have to go out, get capital to be able to lend it to the borrowing side of the house. So I think the other aspect is the capital provider side of this equation has matured a little.
100%.
Right? Because more people are now willing to, let's say, lend out to lending startups.
I mean, like, I think it's no secret at this point that I have a close relationship with Tether. I've known Paulo for a very long time. We co-founded my other business, 21. Mind you, in 2019, 2020, I couldn't work with Tether on this product. You know, Tether now has been instrumental in us creating a no rehypothecation, probably the best pricing you can find, incredibly durable Bitcoin-backed lending product. Back in 2020, interest rates were zero. Tether had never made any revenue.
And there were a lot more legal questions around Tether in those days, you know?
Right. And so to your point, but that's, you see, and I hope Paulo, I mean, there's no way he's going to be the busiest man in the world. He's not sitting in here. But Paulo, like, is a Bitcoiner, an OG Bitcoiner that cares probably more about Bitcoin than anybody. And you're now seeing Bitcoiners have the amount of wealth to make substantial change, where someone like Tether can look at the Bitcoin industry and say, out of support for the asset class, we're going to make sure that this is done properly and support Bitcoin companies like Strike as one of our LP providers, right? So anyways, if that makes sense, the industry is absolutely maturing, absolutely.
Yeah, and I think maybe that's, there you go. And so I think that may also enable, over time, maybe the interest rates can start to come down as more capital providers sort of come to the game and say, hey, we're going to start lending, or we are going to be a capital provider to these lending Bitcoin collateralization companies. So I think that's interesting. Now, another thing you touched on was the security components of this. Now, of course, not your keys, not your coins, all the typical, maxi, obviously we endorse all that. On the no rehypothecation side of things, and I guess what we're seeing is competition in the Bitcoin lending side, things like multi-sig, things like this. Can you touch on a bit of that? Maybe we'll start with the rehypothecation point.
Yeah, so there's no rehypothecation with strike loans. That should be a baseline, and there never will be. I mean, about what we charge and how the product works, we only charge the rate So with other companies, you'll see origination fee, you'll see an early repayment fee, and then obviously people like BlockFi, they were rehypothecating capital to make money as well. We make money one way, and that's the rate. There is no origination fee, there's no early repayment fee, and there's no rehypothecation, and there never will be. Also as a really lean Bitcoin-focused company, I care deeply about making a profit as a business. I think the financial way of making the world a better place is being a profitable company, right? It means we're creating more value for those around us than we're consuming from the world. We're creating more for the world than it's taking us to consume from the world. And so as a profitable business, we don't need to do anything else than charge you what we think is a fair rate. So just to be clear, no rehypothecation. Now on the multi-sig point, thank you, brother. On the multi-sig point, it's interesting because if you go to, so the way the product works is we go out and we source the euros, the dollars from people that are willing to lend to us, and then we are able to distribute it downstream. We've got all the license, we've got the app, we've got the products, we've got the brand to distribute it to the individual, but we ourselves don't have billions of dollars to lend off balance sheet. We're turning around and we create almost this market. And so when I go to someone and I say, we're issuing hundreds of millions of dollars of loans, we're going to need billions of dollars of capital, and they say, cool, here's billions of dollars. Now, where's the collateral? I need to know where the collateral is. And I say, well, it's in a 2 of 3 multisig, and you get one key. They say, fuck that. I'm basically giving you a loan with no collateral. I don't have access to the collateral. In an extreme event where something goes wrong, which is the whole point of building this product, I can't protect myself. So I'm not going to give you billions of dollars at cheap terms. I'll give you $10 million at 15%. And so it's a
right. So it's like a trade-off of what rate they're willing to give and how much capital. So
right.
I guess your point is they're willing to give more capital if there's less of a technological hurdle on the multi-sig side.
It's going to be tremendously difficult to scale a product where you say, hey, give me billions of dollars, and at the way Strike's growing, eventually tens of billions of dollars, and I'm not going to give you control of anything in return. Listen, I'm as Bitcoin OG as you'll ever find. I will die on this hill. That's my line. But it's a good point. I wouldn't give anyone $10 billion in exchange for no collateral either. And so there are probably technical ways that we can all improve this, but our approach at Strike is we're going to build the cheapest, most reliable, but also most practical product we can that can scale and service the needs. And if it's not accordance to your risk tolerance, don't use it. You're not going to hurt my feelings. I get it. And I think the industry will mature, and there's ways to solve this over time. But I think the division that you're seeing in the industry is you cannot scale a product right now to a scale to where in which the industry needs it, where you're not actually giving the person giving you billions of dollars any oversight or ownership over the collateral. It's a really bad deal on their part.
Yeah, or maybe it's just a time thing and a comfort level thing that because maybe they would have to place a lot more trust in your systems as well. And on their side, they would have to kind of either manage keys or have someone professional to do that for them. It's like another whole level. So I think I can understand there's a bit of a trade-off there.
I mean, what I'll say is we only launched our product 6 months ago, and this is no shade on anyone else that's been building in the industry, but so much of this borrowing against Bitcoin, really bad actors, FTX, Celsius. And so when we entered, we realized there's so much to do. There's barely anything here. I mean, we launched, and in 6 months, we're one of the top. We're there's no lines of credit. There's no secured credit card. There's no sophisticated ways to think about collateral and transparency. And really, there's different ways we're working on proof of reserves. There's none of that. And so what I will say is I think the space is evergreen in the amount of innovation that there is to come. We have never launched a product that's growing this fast at Strike. So it tells you the amount of demand that people have for help me live on my Bitcoin without selling it. And you shouldn't have to lose sleep over liquidation. You shouldn't have to be forced to use a 12-month term. You should be able to get a line of credit. You shouldn't have to feel like you don't know if there's rehypo. I agree with all of that. The crazy thing that I couldn't believe is that no one had built it. like, it's mind-boggling. I feel blessed to be in the position to work on these things. So to your point, I think with time, it'll get better. It's been, weirdly, an underinvested sector of our industry that's been almost crowded by shitcoiners and scammers, to be blunt.
Yeah, and I think maybe we've kind of all sort of, as we've kind of gone through the ups and downs of the industry, as you said, I think that has kind of, each time we've kind of taken a big down cycle, that's kind of scared a lot of people away and maybe scared off some of the capital providers, scared off some of the people who want to do it on the borrowing side as well, because they've been scared too. So it's understandable, but at the same time, the industry is maturing. It's a good thing. Looking forward, number is going up, and more people want to hodl. So, any closing thoughts? Last 1 or 2 minutes. That's all we've got time for. Yeah.
No, I mean, I appreciate the support that we get as a business. I was so wrong on what I thought the world needed from Strike as a founder 5 years ago. It was like, looking back, I was an idiot. I thought people wanted us to process Lightning payments, and it's this crowd and the internet at large that told us who we needed to be. So I think as a business, we just deeply appreciate the support and the fact that everyone's vocal with us and you have me on stage. I mean, it's an honor, like I said, to build these products for Bitcoiners and feel like we are a small piece, but an important piece to progressing the asset class and helping Bitcoin change people's lives. So I'm just very grateful and thankful for all of you guys and the relationship that the company has with the community.
Fantastic. Well, that's all we have time for. Put your hands together for Jack Malice from Strike. We are here on the Plan B podcast, coming to you live from Lugano. My name's Stephan Livera. I'm your guest host, and I'm rejoined by Chris Pavlovski, CEO and co-founder of Rumble. Chris, it's been a very exciting year for you, hasn't it?
It sure has. It's been fun, to say the least. It's a total different landscape than it was in the last 5 years, so exciting to be here in 2025.
Yeah. Now, as I understand, I think I saw on your public numbers, was it Q3, you had like 25 million in revenue, and you've got like, is it like 50 million MAU users, and you're seeing a lot of growth on the platform, aren't you?
Yeah, so the last reported number in Q2 that we reported publicly was 51 million monthly active users on the Rumble platform.
Excellent. And so I think I'd love to dive into the Bitcoin and USDT wallet. We spoke about this last time, but I know there's probably been some movement on that. Do you want to give us a bit of an update? What's happening there on the Rumble wallet?
Yeah, so yesterday was the very first day that we tested the wallet with the creator, Viva Frey, and we made multiple tips. So it was the very first time a large platform was receiving tips in Bitcoin and USDT. And that happened yesterday morning. So we're going to be rolling it out in the coming months here to multiple different creators and users, and hopefully for full release early December to mid-December, and have that out to the entire user base on Rumble. So we've been building that in cooperation with Tether since they took a big position us in earlier this year.
Fantastic. And I guess maybe I'm more of a Bitcoin nerd, so I'm just curious. And you tell me if you're not as deep in the detail, but is it like a Lightning supported thing, or is it just kind of on-chain payments? Like, can you give us a bit of information on that?
So the wallet's going to have Bitcoin. You're going to be able to tip in Bitcoin. You're also going to be able to tip in USDT and XAUT. We're going to keep it really, really simple for creators to begin with. Our user base is not... It hasn't really been introduced to the whole Bitcoin and stablecoin world. Most of them probably don't even know what a stablecoin is. It takes a little bit of a learning curve, so we want to keep it super simple for them so that their experience is not intruded by the complexities of what this world has. So we're trying to keep it super, super simple, make the user experience super simple, and be able to convert a population in the United States on using this that hasn't really been that introduced to it. They all understand what gold is. They all understand what the US dollar is. But once you start introducing USDT, like stable coins, a stable coin in gold, or Bitcoin, it's different. And it's like, it was different for me too. Like everyone had their learning curve, and it's not something that you immediately get. Once you get it, it's like the simplest thing in the world. It's just like the same thing as everything else. But Sometimes that complexity there, you want to remove as much of that for the Rumble users as possible, or for any users for that matter.
Yeah. Now, another big topic is free speech in the West right now. I know you've been commenting on this. I saw an interesting tweet. I think it was Pavel Durov. He said, it was his 41st birthday, but he didn't feel like celebrating. And you responded as well, saying, hey, actually, yeah, it's, well, first off, happy birthday. And then you said, things are getting worse around the world, not better. And people are maybe a bit blinded on this. Can you elaborate a bit? Like, what do you see around the world, the state of free speech?
So it's getting in America. It's always been there because of the First Amendment. We had a win in France 2 weeks ago, which I didn't expect. The courts ruled in our favor that the letters that France sent to us were not valid. And for me, I didn't expect that. I didn't expect the French courts to come in our favor, but they did. So to me, that was a very interesting win. But I do think things are getting worse around the world. We see what's happening in Brazil. We see what's happening in the UK. We see what's happening in Europe. And it's not easier to deliver speech, especially the idea of freedom of speech is not easy anymore around the world. It is really protected in the United States, and very grateful for that. But the rest of the world doesn't have that same First Amendment. And it seems like it's getting a lot worse around the rest of the world. And we're seeing that it's getting a lot worse. But I am still hopeful we can fight back. And it's going to, freedom doesn't come for free. You have to fight for it. You have to fight hard for it. And that's what we're going to do. And that's what we have been doing. And France is an example of us fighting for it and winning. So I think we need more of that, more fight. We can't give up because the Trump administration is in power. It's great that they're there and they protect freedom of expression, but you can't take it for granted because the rest of the world is pushing back on that very hard. And you need big companies, you need a lot of individuals, you need a lot of people that really believe in that to push back. And we need to be the majority, and we need to be loud about it. You have to fight for freedom.
Yeah, and so maybe can you elaborate a little bit on the threat? Like as an example, in the UK, people are getting, sent to jail, or police officers are coming to their house because of things they said online. What are the main threats? Is that the main kind of threat you see, or is it things like on the chat control side in the EU? Do you want to explain a bit about where you see the principal threat here on free speech?
Yeah, I would say it's governments wanting to control what people say. In the mechanisms in which they use it through chats or whatnot are just mechanisms, but essentially the threat to free speech is broad. It's basically making sure they control what you say, making sure that they're aware of what you're saying. They want to get rid of your right to privacy, and that all stems from the ability of, you can't really even have a democracy without the ability to have freedom of speech. Be able to say that this government is doing something bad, or this person is doing something good, or this person's doing something bad. If you get rid of that, you're not a democracy. You're not a free society. You're the complete opposite of that. And that's not something that anyone wants to live in, not me anyways. And I think the issue is it's not the mechanisms in which they apply, because there's so many different mechanisms,
like
whether it's on the internet or whether it's the public square or whether it's through chats or whatever it may be. It's just the general broad idea that governments want to have controls over their population. They want to stay in power, and they want to make sure that you don't speak truth to power. Like, that's what they're always trying to crack down on. That's what they're going to continue to crack down on. This is an age-old problem. This is thousands and thousands of years. Governments and power authorities want to maintain power. And they do that by trying to limit and seize your ability to speak.
Yeah. I want to pivot a little bit onto the AI side of things. I know you also there was an announcement maybe recently on Perplexity. So you're doing a partnership there. Can you explain that for us a little bit? As I understand, it's a partnership with Perplexity and the Comet browser, yeah?
Yeah, so we did a wide-ranging partnership with Perplexity. One is the advertising component, so they're going to be working with us on the advertising side. Two is that we've bundled them now in with Rumble Premium. So when you buy Rumble Premium, you can get Perplexity for basically the same price as Perplexity. You get 2 for 1, essentially, up until December 31st. And then 3, we're going to be using Perplexity to help with our recommendations and our discoverability on the platform. So it's a wide-ranging partnership. It's the first of our kind, and it's something that we're really excited about, because AI and getting into AI and being able to use these tools are very important to the Rumble platform, and it's especially important to our creator base.
Yeah. And so when it comes to the discoverability side, as you mentioned, how does that change or improve the experience for the Rumble user? Do you think it just means better recommendations, or what does it mean?
Yeah, so in terms of, we're looking at multiple different things, finding moments in videos, providing that ability for users to find those moments. Discoverability is obviously the most important thing for a creator, getting more views and being able to find their content and being able to recommend the right content to the right user. So there's a lot of different things, but AI is going to impact video in ways that we're not even talking about yet. Like, it's going to help you clip your videos and send them to other platforms automatically. It's going to help you monetize your video content in better ways that we've ever seen before. I think you got to really look at how far AI can go, because it can go really, really far.
Yeah, it's a good point around the clipping and especially searching and finding things, right? Even like on the making things side or on the consumption side of things, it's very useful to be able to kind of seek to the exact point that they talked about a particular topic, and maybe it's not time-stamped or whatever. This kind of search technique, I think that's pretty useful. On the Comet side, so this is the browser. Can you elaborate a bit there? Is there a partnership on that side as well, or no?
Yeah, so the partnership with the Comet browser is the advertising partnership. So Comet's spending a lot of money with us to advertise their product to our Rumble base and Rumble users. And when you sign up to that browser, there's a partnership there that allows you to get Rumble Premium as well.
Okay, gotcha. I understood. And then I think there's like maybe a broader topic around freedom tech. I think this is something you've spoken about as well. Obviously, I think Bitcoin is one of those freedom techs. People talk about whether it's, Signal or Tor or these different things. How are you understanding freedom tech?
So that is the entire ethos of Rumble. We want it to be a freedom ecosystem entirely. We want to be freedom first with every pillar of business that we want to do. So, the way I like to look at Rumble is it's multiple pillars. Generally speaking, the purpose of Rumble is to make sure each pillar is built around freedom and maintains that freedom ethos. So you have media, which is our video platform, which will eventually have our Shorts product. It has Rumble Studio product that allows you to live stream everywhere. Then you have our advertising product. And the advertising product is allowing an exchange basically for you to advertise your products across the internet, and not just Rumble, but everywhere. And then the other pillar is the financial product, which will be Rumble Wallet, allowing you to transact. And another pillar will be cloud, allowing you to build your business on top of an infrastructure. And when you look at those 4 pillars, they all have an ethos of freedom. So like free speech, the ability to freely express yourselves. Advertising, the ability to freely advertise across all these different platforms. Then you have the finance side, the freedom to transact. We're going to have a non-custodial wallet that can never be canceled and that will never stop you from tipping somebody else. Then the cloud, it's literally the freedom highway. It's where all the infrastructure is built to support all these different freedom products. And then when you look at the future of what we want to do, we want to get into AI, we want to get into productivity suites, email, browsers, etc. And we want to get into data centers. We want to build more pillars, and each one of those pillars will, like for AI, for example, will be the freedom for intelligence, the freedom for you to own your own intelligence, for you to be able to have your own AI on your own phone that you own, that a company doesn't own like us. Something that kind of the same way we don't own Bitcoin, but we will enable you to use it. We can't control it. So. And we can't control your wallet. We want to do that for all these different pillars across everything we do at Rumble.
Yeah, sounds fantastic. And so on the Rumble cloud side of things, I guess that's also an interesting one, just because people historically were getting shut down, right? Like if you had the wrong view, they would sort of try to cancel you at the cloud level. And I guess recently there was the kind of big topical AWS outage as well. So do you want to comment a bit on that?
Yeah, so we saw a while ago AWS cancel Parler, and they overnight just took out of business. And when we saw that, we were like, wow, this is existential for us to build our own cloud and make sure that no one can do that to Rumble. And we're in a position right now where no one can do that to us. We are completely independent. AWS went down 2 weeks ago. Doesn't even bother us one bit. Well, all our customers are up. Truth Social's up. Rumble is up. AWS is down. All the other sites are down. We're still up. So we built a completely independent infrastructure. And that is really, really important in the world of big tech, because when you take a look at all the companies, you have Rumble and Tether that basically are for freedom, they're for resilience, independence, privacy, and then you look at the other guys on big tech, and they're for the opposite. They're for censorship, control, centralization, and locked-in contracts, etc. So we're really the freedom-based company on all different points of pillars that we execute on more than any other company in the world. And really, it has to sit on that highway. It has to sit on that cloud. If it's not sitting on that infrastructure, then we have no control. So we're building from the very, very bottom.
Now, I know you've also been battling big tech in some ways. That I know, I think you had, was it a lawsuit with Google around deboosting of Rumble links? What's happened there?
So we have a lawsuit with Google for self-preferencing. They're pushing their, in our opinion, they preference YouTube. But this happens everywhere, and like they obviously I think there's a big antitrust problem with Google on many different fronts. I believe they're a monopoly on many different fronts. We have multiple lawsuits, not just on self-preferencing, but we also have one in the advertising space, which I believe they have a monopoly on the ad market. So there's multiple different fronts that we're challenging Google on, and I think more competition is really important. I really do believe in the Sherman Act. I really believe that if there's one company that controls everything, that's not good for the consumers, and it's not good for society. You can't have a company that has more power than a government. And Google's in that state where they have an enormous amount of power. They have an enormous amount of control on information, on advertising, on video, on search, and I think they have monopolies in so many different respective spaces.
Yeah. There's also, I think people are kind of raising a lot of concerns about things like even nowadays Wikipedia, things like that there's kind of a certain bias there. Does that, I guess, online bias play into any of your building decisions there?
Yeah, obviously they slant things to give an opinion about Rumble that I obviously disagree with. Wikipedia, in my mind, is one giant intel op by multiple different intel agencies around the world to basically influence and create propaganda around whatever narrative they disagree with. So they'll characterize whoever they want to characterize or whatever company they want to characterize in a way that tries to malign them or defame them. That's how I look at Wikipedia. I think it's a pile of garbage. I think it does a disservice to the world in many different ways. But it's sad that companies like Google use Wikipedia and prop them up, and it's my thought that they actually use Wikipedia to basically influence their search results, to be arms of these intel agencies and these governments to kind of push things that among populations that are in my mind just not appropriate, and it's not what they should be doing. They should be treating everybody fairly and equally in their search, and not using Wikipedia as a source to move certain items up in their search. But I believe that's what they do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know we've only got about a minute left, so I guess any other things looking out to the future, what else can people expect to see coming from Rumble?
So it's the future that I'm looking forward to the most. Obviously, Tether invested in Rumble $775 million earlier this year. The plans that we have with Paulo are huge, ambitious, and exciting. We cannot wait to walk the future here. All those pillars I was talking about are the future of Rumble. We want to get heavily into AI. We want to get heavily into the productivity suites. We have the wallet around the corner, and we're really excited to kind of execute on all these strategies. And the best part is we have a backer We have the financial means to get this done, and we have a backer that's very, very ambitious like we are, and that's Tether. So I've never been more excited about the future. It's a lot of work. We put a lot of this work into motion this year, and we'll continue to do that in 2026. So there will be a lot of new things that we'll be introducing, and I can't wait to introduce them. Can't come fast enough for me. I guess like the one thing I wish more of is more velocity in development, and it goes back to Bomber always saying developers. It's that little video that I keep seeing. I keep putting that in my head because it's so important for what we want to build. We need more of them, and they're so important to what we're building. So, I'm so excited for the future and what we can build here on in building the very first Freedom Ethos company.
Fantastic. Well, that's all we've got time for. Everyone, please put your hands together for Chris. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.